Howdy gang, it's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. If you are joining me for the first time, Marketing for the Rest of Us is a daily show that is for us who are in business that don't want to chase algorithms and don't want to have to learn all the techiness of SEO, etc. We are people-oriented business owners who want to make an impact and want to have a genuine, authentic connection and feel like the social platforms and the algorithms oftentimes cause us to be something we're not or ask us to do things we don't have the patience to figure out. I believe that with marketing, we actually have an advantage. Those of us I just described, we actually have an advantage where we can make real connections with human beings as long as we connect with them in a way that feels true and authentic. So that's what this show is dedicated to. How do we, the rest of us, market using the tools that are available to us, but using them in a way that works for us rather than us having to bend to what they are demanding work for them. Okay? So today, we're talking about the residual value of your content. Residual value of your content. Here's where this came up for me. I noticed, and I've done this too, so I'm telling it to you from a place of having been there and done it, right? What I notice when I look out in the world of content marketing is many people are going through the effort to create content. They may do Facebook Lives, they might share a post, they might quote themselves, something. But then they don't reuse that content in any other way. In other words, they treat it like it's disposable. It's like disposable content. And when you treat your content like it's disposable, you miss a ton of opportunities. So I want to break down these problems and give you the alternative so that you don't have to hustle as hard, right? And you can actually make your content go further. You can stretch your content so that it has residual value for you. So here's problem number one, right? Problem number one is that you're treating your content like it's disposable. That's the first problem. Like you show up, you do a Facebook Live today, and then it evaporates tomorrow, right? By tomorrow, it's gone. And you're okay with that, evidently, because we don't repurpose it. We don't tell anybody about it. We don't share it to other platforms. We just created it and then it evaporated, right? And the challenge with that is that when you treat your content as disposable, it makes you have to work harder, right? Like every time it evaporates, you're like, well, tomorrow we're gonna have to do it again, which may be true, right? I'm gonna suggest that you do wanna do it again, but if you could repurpose it, it would give you more opportunities. It would give itself more legs, okay? I also think that when we sort of create these one-off posts and don't repurpose them, what happens is we actually start to underappreciate our own content. We underappreciate the value of the post we did yesterday. We underappreciate the value of the post we did the day before. Every time you guys create something for the world, there is more value in it than what you give it today. Like there is residual value if you would just repurpose it, okay? Here's problem number two. Problem number two is that you have a limited reach. Like your content has a limited reach. Meaning, if you don't repurpose it, then it only reaches the people it reaches today, yes? But if you could repurpose it, you could take a Facebook Live, for example. This is what we do with our agency clients. We interview them for 20 to 30 minutes, and then we will go in and find quotes that they said, beautiful, brilliant things they said in an interview, and we'll turn those into quotes that we can use on Instagram. We'll go in and we'll find a 60-second clip or a 20-second clip, and we'll turn that into a video from that longer form content, and we'll post that on Instagram. You could post it on LinkedIn. You could post it on Facebook. You could post it a lot of places. We'll take all of our clients' interviews and we'll actually put them as a podcast on the podcast directories. So do you see like in Facebook Live like this, Facebook's sort of platform is chronological. So as time goes on, my content gets pushed down and down and down until people don't notice it anymore. But when you put it on something like YouTube, right, which is more evergreen, or you put it on something like the podcast directories, which is also more evergreen, right, where people find your show and they'll binge watch. It's less likely that you'll find my Facebook Lives here and then binge watch all the Facebook Lives I've done, because you'd have to go back to my profile and then scroll through them all and watch them. But if I can put them on a podcast, right? Then you could actually queue them up, subscribe to the podcast, binge listen to everything I've done, and then as new ones come out, you could keep listening. That's residual value. That's working not as hard, right? So if you just treat these as disposable, if you treat your posts as disposable content, then it limits your opportunity because you're not putting it in additional places where people can consume it, right? All right, let's hit the next one here. The third problem then is that, and I love this one a lot. You have no brand container for your content. So what happens, right? Like in the human brain, if you watch anything that, let's say, Donald Miller does at StoryBrand, I mean, I think he actually got this from Science Mike, where they talk about like the brain is trying to conserve calories. The harder something is for our brains to comprehend, the more calories we burn, the more we shut down and move on. We don't pay attention to it. What branding does is it gives people a place to relate to. It gives them something to orient themselves to. So when you have a show, when you have content and you frame it inside of a branded show, right? Like this is Marketing for the Rest of Us. This show, this daily show is called Marketing for the Rest of Us. It gives you something to orient yourself to. You're like, oh, Chris does a thing called Marketing for the Rest of Us. It's a daily show he does on his personal profile. And then at some point in time, I will repurpose that out into these other places, right? You now have a way to relate to it. Not only do you relate to it like, oh, it's a show and it's a recurring thing and I could tune in tomorrow and, right, like it sets expectation. But the brand also gives you a place to relate to the content because it's called Marketing for the Rest of Us. And in that is an implication, yes? There is something implied in that, like if you're from my tribe, you'll get it. You'll get that. Most people want to ask, what do you think Marketing for the Rest of Us means? They say, oh, well, I think it means like marketing for those of us that don't get marketing. Yep, there you go, right? Those of us who don't want to chase algorithms. Yep, that's it. So now with a brand on my show, on my content, you can relate to it as if it applies to you. You can be like, that is my show. That's a show for me. But when we just do one-off pieces of content, we post a picture or we do a Facebook Live and we don't have it inside of a brand container, then people don't know how to relate to it. And so their brain starts to shut down. They watch it for a little bit, but they don't know what's in it for them. When it's in a show, a branded show, it creates a container for people to relate to your content. Yes? So here's the other thing I want to say about that. When you have a brand, it's called something, right? Your content is called something. Then it also makes it easier for your fans to tell other people about it. It would be easier for you now to go say to somebody who's in business, oh, Chris Angel has this show called Marketing for the Rest of Us. It's great because it just talks about how you don't have to always do the algorithm thing and you don't have to always do what all the tech people say you have to do. You can be authentic. And he does it every day. It's called Marketing for the Rest of Us, blah, blah, blah. And there you go. And then you just share it. If I don't have a name for what I do, then you're like, yeah, Chris Angel, he goes live every day, I think, and he talks about marketing stuff. And so now it starts to get really loose, right? It's hard for you to talk to somebody else about what I do. Similarly, when you go live or when you post, but it doesn't have a branded container, then people don't know how to talk to others about you, even if they like your content. Even if they like the Facebook Live you did yesterday, they don't know how to share it with other people. When you have a branded container, there's a residual value to your content because it's shareable. It is more shareable. People can talk about it with other people, right? Part of your job in your content is to make your content easy to talk about with other people. And giving it a name, like a show name, or giving your content a branded container makes it easy for people to talk about. So I want you to think about this as you guys are doing your content. I want you to start to think about what is the residual value of this content? How else can I use this content? How else can this content get legs and go out in the world so that I don't have to work as hard? Right? So that it's evergreen in multiple places, so that if there's somebody on YouTube, they could find me. If there's somebody in the podcast directories, they could find me. If there's somebody on Instagram or LinkedIn, they could still find me. It's the same content. You've just repurposed it in a way that gives more people the chance to find you, rather than relating to your content like it's disposable, right? Like, because if it's disposable, guys, it evaporates and it's gone, and you can never use it again. But if you are smart about the way you think about the content, then you can actually repurpose it, and it will give you residual value. All right, that's it for today, gang. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Until tomorrow, go out there and start planning your content with some intention. See ya.